Hi, I'm Valerie Burton, and welcome to the video version of this week's weekly online newsletter. So I have a question for you. What's the reason you have for not pursuing your most authentic goal? Your most authentic goal. This is the one that you know you want to achieve, but you find yourself hesitating, not moving forward, being really frustrated about it. What's the reason you have for not pursuing it? Now, what I want to talk to you about is if we change that word reason to excuse. And this is something where, a lot of times when I'm coaching, sometimes there's a pushback because no one wants to feel like they're making excuses, but all of us at one point or another have had excuses for why we can't have what we really want. And the excuses can look different for different people or for different stages in your life. Your excuse might be around not having enough time or perhaps not having enough money. Maybe it's that person in your life that feels like is always tearing you down or telling you that you can't do it. Perhaps your excuse is that the dream is just too hard. It feels too complex. The commitment perhaps is too big. Or maybe you've convinced yourself that you don't have enough experience. Or maybe you really don't have the education for what you really want. We can have any number of excuses, any number of them. Maybe your excuse is that you don't have enough contacts, enough friends, you need to have fewer obligations, perhaps you need to weigh less before you can move forward. There's any number of excuses we can come up with. I think you get the point here. But if we can be honest about our excuses, we can find a way to work around them. So I want to give you a few questions to ask yourself, not to beat yourself up, but to find that way to coach yourself through the issue of fear that creates excuses in our lives that keep us stagnant and keep us from that finish line of the goal that we really, really want to reach. Okay, so if you feel yourself resistant to this, just know that's normal. You can yell at the screen and go, Valerie, you don't understand, and that's fine. But I want you to still push through these questions and just open yourself up to answering them as honestly as possible, even if you feel like there's nothing you can do about it right now. I guarantee you're going to get something out of this. So here's the thing. When you let go of your excuses, you end up having to find a way to work around them. So start with this question: what is my excuse? What's my excuse? Actually articulate it, because sometimes it becomes such a natural part of how we talk about our goal or our dream that we haven't even really identified that this is the thing that's keeping us from moving forward. So just, what is your excuse? What is the reason that you constantly give that justifies not being able to move forward? And then here's the second question. What does my excuse give me permission to do or not do? Depending on what your goal is, it might be something it gives you permission to do. Sometimes it's what it gives you permission not to do, but whatever the case, it keeps you stuck and stagnant. So what does it give you permission to do? If you don't have enough time, then it gives you permission to not spend time doing the kinds of things that will move you forward. If your excuse is you don't have enough money, then it gives you permission to not invest in yourself and in your dream. If your excuse is you don't have enough contacts, it gives you permission to not make progress, to not build your business if that's what it is that you're doing. If only I had, if only I could, becomes the mantra. So what is it that this excuse, this reason, gives you permission to do or not do? And the third question is this: if I no longer had this excuse, what would I have to do? If I could no longer use the excuse that I don't have enough contacts, what do I have to do? Well, I guess I would have to set as a first goal beginning to build my contacts. If I could no longer use the excuse that I don't have enough time, well, either one, I'd have to drop the goal for now until I could find enough time, or I would have to find time in the schedule I have now. I'd have to cut some things out that might be hard for me to cut out. If I could no longer use the excuse that I don't have enough money, what would I have to do? Maybe I'd have to get really creative about how to get the things that I need in order to move forward with my dream. Perhaps I'd have to find a way to barter. Perhaps I'd have to find a way to earn more money. Perhaps I would have to find a way to decrease my expenses so that I could free up some money for what I say is most important to me. In other words, I might have to make some really hard decisions if I didn't have this excuse, because I would no longer have permission to do what I've been doing. So here's the question. If you no longer had permission and you had to figure out a way around it, well, why don't you just figure out the way around it now? Why don't you figure out the way around it now? Why don't you make the calls that need to be made, reach out in the ways you need to reach out, make the tough decisions that you need to make? You see, I really believe that if a goal is meant for you, if it's authentic for you, you can't fail at it. You may have to make some difficult choices. There might be some struggle in the process, but that's all meant to be, because it's going to further develop you into the person you're meant to be. It's really all about commitment when it comes to our goals. And so sometimes we find when we go through this process that the goal we have right now is not for this season. Perhaps it's unreasonable, and so perhaps we need to wait. Maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 3 years, depends on what the goal is. And that's okay. But let me tell you what it does when you free yourself up in that way. You stop beating yourself up for not being able to do it right now. And you're able to begin planning towards what you really want. But if it is the season, you'll find that it's time to rev up your engines and get moving, making the tough choices and blasting through your obstacles. In other words, your excuses. You can do this, but you got to get honest with yourself. You have to make some tough choices. If you want more life strategies, just go out to my blog. It's at valerieburton.com/blog. I'll talk to you next time.